Good evening. My name is Lauren Nellums, and for my case study analysis, I'm going to discuss the case Don't Talk Back. In summary, the case is about a student that challenges her professor regularly in class. She has really strong opinions and she's not afraid to hold those opinions back. Now, the professor, he in general gets along really well with the students, but he does have a few qualms that consistently go from semester to semester. One of those is that he can be really frosty depending on if he doesn't like a student. He can also be really inflexible and does not like to be challenged. So, with that being said, with this student, her name is Daphne, she's had some really intense arguments with the professor. His name is Professor Jackson. And it concerns a friend of hers, Armand, because he sees that what's happening is the more she challenges this professor, the more she suffers. And for her, her grades are really important. So, it brings up this dilemma of A, is Daphne right to regularly challenge her professor in that way? B, is the professor correct in getting his feelings hurt, if you will, by a brilliant student? And who's right, who's wrong? Do both parties have the right to express their feelings the way they do? Or is it because of the person is on a college campus, they should be able to have freedom of speech and be able to express herself? So what I want to discuss, and the topic that I'm going to focus on with regard to the professor, is that he seems to exhibit behavior of having a personality disorder, which is part of the cluster that is called antisocial personality disorder. So that's my argument, and I base it off of some of the characteristics that are mentioned about the professor. It mentions later on in the case study that he actually has a reputation for being vindictive. And so I wanted to reference one book that I'm actually currently reading just for research for my own personal experience, which I also want to share. But it's called The Sociopath at the Breakfast Table. And there's lots of books about sociopaths, psychopaths, all of the above. But this particular book really wants to focus on the effect that those individuals have. And I thought this would be a great case study to mention because this particular student seems to be getting the ill effects of a sociopath. So with that being said, you have to consider one of the main issues about someone with a personality disorder. One of the things that people often find with somebody that tends to be a sociopath or psychopath is that they can't handle being challenged. Well, first of all, they don't have empathy. So they don't have any way of really understanding where the other person might be coming from. Or let's say with Daphne, maybe she's not personally against the professor, but she feels strongly about her beliefs, so she wants to express them. Somebody with a personality disorder like being a sociopath, they can't make that translation. What ends up happening is that they are really only worried about what affects them. And in the case of Professor Jackson, it sounds like he feels challenged, and maybe he feels embarrassed, maybe he feels something for himself. So he feels like he has to go on the offensive or the defensive and challenge this student every single time. And so one of the great things about this book that it brings out is that with sociopaths, they again can't stand being wrong and they can't stand being challenged. So what they'll end up doing is they will fiercely fight you if they feel like you are coming against them or that you become their enemy. And with that comes other negative effects, like so them taking a revenge against you, them trying to publicly humiliate you, them trying to put you in your place, if you will. So it ends up being that you sort of have this new challenge, especially if you're Daphne. You feel like now your reputation's on the line, so you have to continue fighting this professor. So there's a few problems: the personality disorder, but also Daphne in her future. This class might be really important to where she's trying to do and where she's trying to go in her college career. So is it really worth it to be on the bad side of the professor. So those are some of the problems that are identified, and especially with regard to someone having a personality disorder like this, if you've ever personally come across them, you know what I mean, that this is not just something you want to take lightly. That being said, I want to share my own personal experience with a situation like that, and why I believe the person has a personality disorder is someone I actually currently work with exhibits behavior just like this. What you find is when you try to discuss a problem with the person, let's say it's clear that I might disagree with something this person's done. Now, any reasonable person, you would be able to go up to this person and say, oh, hi, so and so, I have a problem with this, or maybe you did this incorrectly, or I'm sure there's better ways to phrase it so the person doesn't feel too defensive, but in general, you bring up some point to say, I was displeased with this. Now, a common person, in general, most people would say, oh, wow, I didn't know I was bothering you in that way. Usually they'll apologize, or maybe if they even slightly get defensive, they might try to defend themselves. But in the end of the day, the ultimate goal is that they hear what you're saying. But with a sociopathic person, it's not like that. Somehow, before you know it, you've entered into an argument with them about why you're wrong for feeling the way you do. And if you're not strong mentally, you can end up leaving the conversation really baffled because you weren't approaching it in a negative way. Maybe you were just literally telling them they made a mistake. In my personal experience, at first it started off saying to this lady, the receptionist, oh, well, you transferred a call to me that didn't belong to me. It actually should have gone to this person. That's pretty reasonable, right? But somehow it turns into World War III to discuss with this person, and you constantly are finding you're having situations like that. And again, one thing the book brought out is that with people that are sociopaths, they can't see what you're talking about. They don't have empathy. They don't want to. They don't care what you feel or how you think. What they care about is their own agendas and their own motivations. So what's happening is that you end up talking to a wall. And for me, and when I look at this case study, I completely understand having a passionate argument with someone like Professor Jackson, because you might feel passionately about something yourself, but then when you talk to someone that's sociopathic, their reasoning is so frustrating at times, and sometimes it ends up making your blood boil because this person could be 100% wrong or incorrect about whatever the topic is, but they will never see it that way, and they tend to have a sense of entitlement, which sometimes is more narcissistic, but they also are similar in that way. A sense of entitlement, a sense of grandiosity, thinking that's all they see and know about themselves. So this is a problem. It's a problem I've experienced, and it's definitely a problem in this case study for Daphne. So in the end, what are the solutions for her? I could think of three. One, she can think for the long term, not just the short term, meaning, is it really going to be worth it at the end of the semester to very likely get a D or an F in the class because you care about your opinions that much? And that way you have to kind of consider and think to yourself, is this the battle I want to or another solution I would say is for her to discuss it with an outside person. She sounds like Armand is already aware, so maybe she can get a little bit of sympathy from him, but he's a peer, so he may not really be able to assist her. I would recommend she talk to an advisor or someone else that's at the same level of the professor or higher, so she can protect herself and have a running dialogue now that's started. I might also even suggest that she start writing down some of the content of the discussions, just in case when she brings it up later, she'll have proof and evidence of what's happened. But also another solution that she could do is she could continue to do what she's doing, challenge the professor, and then just kind of accept the consequences of whatever that means. That might mean, getting dirty looks from the professor, getting a low grade, but then at the end of the day, she might feel that she's stuck up for she stood up for her beliefs and what she felt, and she can sleep every night now peacefully with a sound conscience because she did that. To me, the best solution for her is to think for her future and decide how far you're going to go. Just from personal experience, I know how frustrating it can be to talk to someone like that. You really want them to see your way, and you understand that there's different opinions, but with them it's just so different. Like, it's beyond just a different opinion. It's just sometimes it's really just maddening. So you have to really save your own energy and really think of your future. Like, is it really worth it to get an F for this class because you have a frustrating professor? Maybe it's better to still state your opinion, but don't go too far. Feel at peace with what you have. You'll come across a lot more people that have that personality disorder and throughout your lifespan. So save your energy, save your time, and pick the battles for things that really matter. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening, and I want to know your thoughts. Thanks. Bye.